All right, we are back again, section 3.4, completing the square. So this is just another way to solve quadratic equations. So what we want to create is a perfect square trinomial. So what that is any trinomial of the form ax squared plus bx plus c that can be factored into a binomial factor squared. And a lot of words, not great with words. Let's talk about what that means with some examples here in just a little bit. So there are four ways to solve. We've talked about inverse operations. We've talked about the quadratic formula. Inverse operations would be by the square root method is what we call it. We also have completing, the square. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Factoring is going to come in a little bit later video. It's kind of a longer process and a little bit more difficult to understand. So it says solve each equation below using inverse operations. Like I said, it's a square root method, so you want to get your term isolated that's being squared and then take the square root. We're not going to do that. You can go back and watch the last video if you'd like to see how that's done again. But let's just talk about how to complete the square, and then we'll talk about actually solving by completing the square. So here's what we want. So we have x squared plus 6x plus something. We don't know what equals x plus 3 times x plus 3. So here's how you complete the square. So this would be a, this would be b. We're trying to figure out c. To figure out c, take half of b, which is 6. We're going to take half of it and square it. So half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So that's what c is. Says that right there. Take half of b and square it. And we'll talk about this other part here in a second. Fill in the blank to make this a perfect square trinomial. So again, take half of b, so negative 8 divided by 2 squared. Negative 4 squared is positive 16. When you square a number, it's always going to be positive. Okay, so just a little more practice. Complete the square and show what perfect square it is. So I'm going to show you how to get these answers rather quickly. So x squared plus 12x plus blank. You're always going to add c when we complete the square. So plus blank. So the first one, what we're going to do is we're going to take half of b and square it. So 6 squared is 36. Okay, so then it asks what is the perfect square. So here I'm just going to show you, jump right into the shortcut. Okay, this is what we want. We want it to look like this right here. And here's how it's going to work. So you're always going to start with whatever variable you have, in this case x, your first sign, plus, and then take half of b again, which was 6. Boom, that's it. Okay, second one. Let's jump over here. So take half of b and square it. So 7 squared is 49. So that's what goes there. To find the perfect square, set this up again. So take your variable, which is y, your first sign, which is plus, and then half of b again is 7. That's it. One last example here. We are going to take half of b, so negative 10, square it, and you get 25. So that's what our c value would be. And then to find the perfect square, we're going to take our variable, which is y, our first sign, which is minus, and then half of b, which is 5. There you go. And that's it. And then from there, it's just the square root method. So you can read through these directions right here. Let's just talk through an example or two. So solve by completing the square. So the first thing you want to do is you want a and b on one side, and c you actually want on the other side. It's kind of opposite of what we normally do when we solve equations. We want a, b, and c usually on the same side, and then we can use a quadratic formula or something like that. In this case, we want c on the other side, so we're going to add 16 in this case. We're left with x squared minus 6x. Now I'm going to go plus blank because I'm going to complete the square equals 16. Okay, so then it kind of looks like what we were doing right up here. Now off to the side, I'm going to take half of b and square it. So negative 3 squared is positive 9. Remember, when you square a negative number, you should always get a positive answer. If you type it in your calculator wrong, it's going to tell you negative 9. But it should be positive 9. So what that means is we're going to add 9 here. That's my new c value. But to balance the equation, we also have to add 9 to the other side. What you do to one side of an equation, you have to do to the other. Okay? And the reason we're doing that process is, so on the left side, we can write it as a perfect square. On the right side, 16 plus 9 is 25. Just add the numbers. So to write the perfect square, take your variable, your first sign, and half of b. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. Boom. So that would be the shortcut to factoring. Take the square. So now, like I said, square root method. We have our squared term isolated. Boom. Take the square root. It's going to cancel out all of this, and it's going to leave you with x minus 3 equals plus or minus 5. One more step. Add 3. X equals, now, so here's what this means. We have 3 plus or minus 5. It's not a complex number. It's not an imaginary number. So we can actually add these together. So first of all, we can take 3 plus 5, and we get 8. And then we can take 3 minus 5, and we'll end up with negative 2. So that is the process of completing the square. So we'll do one more example here. So we're going to start by moving c. So we have a, b, c. We'll start by moving c to the other side. Rewriting this as x squared plus 4x plus, we'll find that number, equals 6 plus, and then remember we have to add it to the other side as well. To find that number off to the side, take b, divide it by 2, and square it. 2 squared is 4, so we're going to add 4 on the right and the left side. Factor the left side. So the whole reason we do that, completing the square part, is so we can write it as a perfect square. Here's the shortcut again. Take your variable, your first sign, and half of b. And then add 6 plus 4 on the other side. And now we're almost done. Now it's a square root method, so we just take the square root. And that leaves us with x plus 2 equals plus or minus. Now 10 is not a perfect square. So really what you should do is try the factor tree. And if you break 10 down into prime numbers, we don't have pairs. So you can't simplify the square root of 10 is what I'm trying to say. So we'll leave that as the square root of 10. We still need to finish this by subtracting 2. And then again, the proper way would be to write the whole number first, so negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 10. And that would be your final answer because we can't simplify it. And we want to leave radicals as radicals. We don't want to write them as decimals. So that's it. There is one. Well, apparently we can't count. Let's do an example number 2. There's 2 examples for you to give a try on your own, and that's it.